Hi there and welcome back to my channel. So this week I'm going to give you 4 tips to help you create a great team climate. So if a team's culture is the reality of what's going on, the team's climate is more about perception. And what I tend to say to kind of a lot of my clients and students is think of culture as the personality of a team or organisation, and climate is more kind of mood and emotion. So what I find time and time again is that a manager's mood can really affect the mood and general feel of a team. So in other words, you really can't underestimate the impact of every little thing that you do or even that you don't do as a manager. But before I give you those tips, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you get a new video from me every Friday filled to the brim with tips and tools to help you thrive and shine at work. Okay, so here are my 4 tips to help you create a positive, high performance team climate. So number 1, ensure each and every team member is clear on theirs and their colleagues' priorities. So what I often find is in a one-to-one, a manager will kind of develop some objectives with a person, but that's as far as it goes. So other team members might not be aware of kind of what that person is going to be working on. So don't assume that everyone is aware of what exactly are the most important bits of their role and their colleagues' roles. So clearly identifying the top 3 priorities for each person, including you, is the first step. And I tend to keep things at 3 because they're easy to remember. When you start kind of getting to a list of 7, 8, 9, 10, even more key priority objectives, you've got a problem on your hands, because you really can't have that many priorities per person. That's just bonkers. So really kind of nail it down to, if nothing else got done, what would be the top 3? And then second is getting your team member, your member of staff, to play back to you, to say to you what they've understood those priorities to be. And this can often be an overlooked step when I've asked managers, and that's often where kind of misunderstandings can take place, or things don't quite get done in the way the manager expected. And so checking that you and the other person are on the same page is key. And finally, kind of taking all these priorities that everybody's got and putting them into different formats in shared spaces can be really helpful. So what do I mean by that? Well, for example, you might put a big poster on the office wall that kind of summarises. You could do infographics on a team blog. You could make sure that team members are talking about progress on their priorities at team meetings. Key is it's kind of front of mind for everybody, and everybody's kind of understanding each other's kind of perspectives and priorities. The second tip is make time and space for people to really get to know each other. I've said this many times over the years. You really can't underestimate the importance and power of people getting to know each other inside the work environment, but also outside of work. So I understand there are going to be different levels of comfort with this, with some team members, maybe even yourself, kind of having a really kind of clear demarcation between work and outside of work. But key is to kind of put into place a range of things that take place over the year. You know, team building events, for example, really shouldn't be a one-off, you know, tick list, job done. This is something that should be happening on an everyday, every week, every month basis in some shape or form. So having a forward plan of activities is a really helpful way to keep you on track, and this is something that I advise to a lot of managers. So for example, you might have a half day kind of get together to kind of look at priorities once a quarter. Within that, you might have a topic that you're going to develop. So, you know, it might be creative thinking. You might have a one day once or twice a year where it's more about kind of the relationships. It might be in a completely different environment from your kind of your office. You kind of get where I'm coming from. So it's also really important within this though that you show due diligence and concern for each of the individuals in your team and their circumstances. So for example, you might have people with caring commitments who might not be able to do certain days. You might have people whose religions prohibit them from engaging in events where alcohol is drunk. You can have a mix of formal, so that might be, for example, having a team building event in a conference or training venue. It could be informal, so that might be an evening event like a team bowling night, for example. Key is to kind of keep things simple and also get the team involved. So this shouldn't just be down to you, and in my experience it's often better when it's not just down to the manager to arrange the whole year's worth of kind of team building, team development activities. No offence. Tip number 3 is work with the team to create a set of agreed values and ways of working. So when I'm called in to work with managers and their teams, often it's those that are in conflict or that are underperforming. One of the first things I do is assess if there is clarity around how people should work together. So the rules of the game is what I like to call it. And those teams who have real clarity around what's important, what everyone stands for, as well as how people should work together, tend to be in a much better place and tend to be more effective. And those teams where everyone has actually helped create a clear set of values and ways of working tend to do even better. They tend to be higher performing. So in other words, please don't make the mistake that so many managers make and think this stuff isn't important. It's kind of soft and fluffy. They almost kind of dismiss it. And certainly don't make the mistake of locking yourself away on your own in a dark room with a cold flannel on your head, kind of tapping away, trying to come up with a set of values and ways of working yourself. Collaborating and co-designing this stuff is the way to high performance, and certainly the way to a healthy, happy, collaborative team climate. So number 4 is lead by example and roll your sleeves up. So having some form of 360-degree feedback, in my experience, is the surest way to find out if your team think you're somebody who leads by example and gets stuck in when people are up against it or they need some help, or maybe you're somebody who takes credit for other people's work and then you're not around and you expect other people to do stuff that you wouldn't. Look, I get it, 360 can be tough. You know, I've had it myself lots of times, and certainly I've facilitated it for lots of managers over the last 20 years. But it can be such a powerful thing, and I'm still shocked even now in 2019 when I come across people in management and leadership roles who've never had 360-degree feedback or kind of indeed any kind of feedback session on what their teams think about them and what their colleagues think about them. And you know, you're flying a bit blind, you're driving a bit blind. It's like driving without your mirrors. And so getting that feedback is crucial if you're to understand where you're starting from. One of the things I used to do as well when I was a team manager was I didn't just get the managers who reported into me to do 360 feedback, and it wasn't just me who did it. I got everyone in the team, even those who weren't managers, to do it, because what that helped create was a team where feedback became the norm. It wasn't something to be frightened of giving. And you know, whether something was going well or something wasn't going so well, you know, people would kind of own that and talk to each other about that. So it created, as I say, a really healthy, high performing team environment. And then in addition to kind of getting 360-degree feedback, it's also about sharing what matters to you, so your kind of personal values, getting real understanding about that and helping the people that work with you understand what matters to you. Then sharing those with your team, because this will give them a really clear sense of what you stand for, and what you don't stand for, and it acts as a bit of a marker for assessing your leadership of the team. So it helps your team kind of understand how well you're doing against your own values. So one of mine is honesty. One of my core values is honesty. Some people might say I'm too honest at times, probably a little bit too blunt, but honesty is a core value nonetheless. And I was always really clear about that with any of the teams that reported into me, including, you know, making it clear that no matter how difficult a message was to give to me, particularly if things were going wrong, as they inevitably do, that they needed to be honest and let me know as soon as possible, because that is something I would hugely value, more than them kind of going off trying to solve it and I only find out at the last minute that something's gone wrong. So those that have worked with me know that honesty is my number one value, and that includes me being honest with other people, again, no matter how tough the message might be. So getting that real clarity of what is important to you and then letting your team members know is crucial. And look, you know, that's just 4 of my tips, and these are tips that have come from working with other managers who found they've really helped, along with my own experience of creating high performing teams. But you've got loads of wisdom. I say this every week to you. You've got so much knowledge and experience to share. So are there any tips that you would share with this community that you think could help other managers? If so, pop them in the comments box below so that others can benefit from your wisdom. And look, did you like this video? If you did, give it a big old thumbs up. I will love you forever. And more importantly, subscribe, you know, and click the bell, because then you'll get an updated video from me every Friday, fresh out the package before anybody else sees it. You'll kind of get it hot off the press. So subscribe and click the bell. And then, yeah, did any of my tips stand out for you? If so, again, pop them in the box below. And if you try any of them out and you see the difference it makes, again, let me know in the comments box below. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next Friday. Bye.